buffer time? What is buffer time? Is what buffer time?
Hello again there, my buffer timers. It's been a while. We haven't talked about live Trek for a while due to the current strike in Hollywood, but we're going to talk about one of Star Trek's maybe best actresses. Well, we've got this downtime, so let's go around real quick and introduce ourselves. I'm Dustin from Best of Trek, Worst of Trek.
Hi, I'm Vanessa, and I host a YouTube channel called I Love Bad Star Trek.
And I am Scott of the YouTube channel No Opinions No One Cares About.
I care, Scott. I
We
care.
all care.
Thank you very much.
So, one of the first things in digging up all this stuff about Majel this week that I learned that I didn't know is that her given maiden name is not Barrett. It's Hudek.
Huh.
And in the credits of the menagerie, since she's credited for Nurse Chapel as Majel Barrett, she uses her original name. And she actually became Barrett because of Roddenberry and to try to sidestep him when she got the role of Nurse Chapel. She was trying to get in there because she had been fired. A lot of people say that she was kicked out of the first season or the whole show as number one because she was a woman, right? That's the constant recurring trope that we hear about. But something I came across that may or may not have any validity, it's even cited as just a rumor, that Roddenberry kind of maybe invented that in the 70s in the convention circuit, and that it had more to do with the fact that he was married at the time, and him and Majel had already had an affair, so it was nepotism, and that's why she didn't get the job originally. So coming back around, when she came back through, Lucille Ball, I mean, everybody's like, oh, the godmother of Star Trek, Lucille Ball. When she found out that Majel had come back and gotten the role as Chapel, she tried to fire both Gene and her. And it wasn't until one of their mutual friends talked her down off the cliff that she's like, okay, fine, I guess they can stay. So yeah, researching this found out some really interesting things.
Right.
But I guess our first actual question here is, what would TOS have been like if number one had remained?
I feel like what would have happened is that Kirk would have continued to make situations worse by getting involved, and Majel would have to save him. That's what I think would happen, because in the episode that they chopped up to use as menagerie, she saved him, and I feel like that might have been an ongoing thing.
I'd like to think that, might have looked at the show as being even more progressive, especially for the time period, the woman being second in command of the Enterprise. But then I also wonder, I think when it comes to like positions of command, Voyager comes to mind mostly, that Star Trek tends to avoid like the two main characters, will they, won't they trope tends to be a thing in like sitcoms. So like it's possible they could have avoided that between Kirk and number one.
I don't know if I would trust writers in the 60s
might have held on to Pike.
To like make it so that they're not romantically involved, because even like the Yeoman and Kirk had a thing going on, and Chapel and Spock had a sort of connection, and it's like, so yeah, I don't know if I'd trust them in that time. Sorry.
Yeah, I do think it would have gone there. I don't think I could see it happening with a Jeffrey Hunter Pike had he continued also, But with Kirk, yeah. Yeah, I think there would have been at least one episode somewhere along the line. But how would that have played out for Spock, where he was the first officer in TOS? And if she had been above him, he would have been caught between two. Well, I guess that we probably wouldn't have gotten Nurse Chapel at that point, but I was just going to say then he'd be caught between two Majels.
Probably not.
I think that would have threatened the traditional patriarchal structure in a way that they would have to overcompensate, because also Vulcans in a sense are sort of emblematic of a certain manifestation of toxic masculinity, where they are like, we know better, we can repress our emotions and that kind of thing. So I could see those two opposing forces being the central source of conflict going forward, if that's, you know, what they're planning on, if that was the setup.
Yeah, and if you consider, you know, when they threw McCoy into the mix, you're really upending like the iconic trio there.
Yeah,
Because
wow. What
if,
would that
like,
have done to
Spock-
the big three?
Exactly, because if Spock isn't second in command, he's probably not going to have as many opportunities to speak up, and then McCoy's not going to be there calling him a cold-blooded half-breed or whatever.
Yeah,
But
he
that's
would have been.
assuming. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say then that Spock would have become a Scotty, and he would have been like in command every time everybody else is off the ship. Go ahead, Vanessa.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
Oh, I was going to say that's assuming that what would have been there instead wouldn't be compelling, that they wouldn't have found their niche and memorability. Like, I just don't think that Majel being in the center would have like robbed the show of any of its magic, because they still had solid writing. It just happened to be centered around those three dudes.
So let's go from there to what is your favorite character that Majel has played across Star Trek? Because for me, it is number one. She got one episode, and it sucks that that's all she got, because she was strong. She got this cool thing with the death ray laser that we never see again. That was neat. And she seemed like she took charge. She was one of the boys.
That is true, but I might actually give it to the computer. You know, nothing against Loxana, the character with, you know, humor and depth and what some actually pretty good character arcs, but you know, that computer voice, it just carried through basically the 90s, and I mean, it's iconic in and of itself. You get back to, and no, not even that, before that, because wasn't she also doing the computer voice on TOS? Just
Some of the
sounded
time.
different.
Yeah, weirdly, it's not all the time, but yes.
Oh, you think that?
Nope,
would be
and it's
consistent?
like it's not even like she started, like somebody else started and she picked it up. She does it towards the beginning, and then somebody else does it for a while, and then she picks it back up. It's weird.
Well, kind of look at that. It's kind of like a glue that helped keep the series, keep it going, really. And oddly enough, I really enjoyed, like, anytime, like, I think Geordi especially would end up having a conversation with the computer to try to get it to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, though, that brings up an interesting point. In the beginning of TNG, the first like 10 episodes, everything before 110, however many zeros and ones it is, that's the first time Majel is the computer. Before that, it's an uncredited person that nobody's been able to figure out who actually did the voice. People in chat rooms and boards have tried to dig this up for years, and I would love to come to the answer of who the computer voice was at the beginning of TNG.
Absolutely.
Full offense against Lexana, fully, because I cannot stand Lexana Troy. But yes, I agree. Una was the moment where I feel like Majel Barrett got to shine the most. got to do the most. And within Luxana, I saw a symbol of someone pissing on the grave of Una's character. That's what I saw every time Luxana came on screen, because it's like, this is like a stereotypically just boisterous person. Like, I get it that you have to create a character where that shows up once a season, but Una deserved much more airtime than she got.
Yep. I hope we get a really good explanation sometime in Strange New Worlds. Like, she gets to captain her own ship. She gets to go on a really extended, awesome, powerful mission. That'd be great to hear. So I guess from what you just said, the next question I should ask is there a more annoying recurring character in Star Trek than Lwaxana Troi? And if so, who? For me, I don't think there is one. I think it's Lwaxana. She has her moments, which we'll get to, but I also think she is the most annoying character easily.
And not just like annoying in terms of just like persistently, it's the way she's written is so flat. Like, she is inappropriate all the time. She doesn't really respect her daughter or her life decisions. It's the 24th century. Telling somebody you need a family is so out of place, and it's so like encapsulates how misogynistic TNG was written to be, because like Beverly and Troy are just these maternal figures that don't get to do too much per episode.
Yeah.
And she has to be even more of that. Like, it's just it also made Picard uncomfortable, Riker uncomfortable, because she was constantly hitting on them. Like like, what?
Yeah, actually, one of my favorite stills in TNG is this one where the show starts with Picard's just like creeping around the corridors, like
Right?
peeking, because he doesn't want to run into her, and there she is. She just comes out of nowhere.
For someone that reads minds, she is way out of tune with, or doesn't really care how uncomfortable Picard is in these situations, or how uncomfortable Riker is. So it's like she has this meta awareness most people don't have, and continues anyway, in this reckless way.
Yeah, she is the sexual harassment panda of TNG.
Also Odo.
Yeah. Oh my
Even
gosh, so
made
much.
Odo uncomfortable. Like, they got stuck in an elevator together.
Stuck in a closet with Vanna White.
Great tune.
Yeah. But like, Odo's a blank slate, so I could understand, but still, like, generally you're trapped in, I don't know. I just find that side of her disgusting and horrible.
Though, yeah, once we got to DS9 in the elevator, that's one of the best Majel moments there is. It's not the best episode, but it's this great moment where she gives Odo agency to just open up and be himself. And it's really nice. And it's one of the only times we get her being just herself and not the character that she's portraying to the rest of the world. She literally takes her wig off and like she just lets her hair down. And I've always wondered if, aside from that, I've never known if number 1 was the only other time we might have seen her real hair. Or if that's a wig too.
Okay, you do like that thing at the end of your episodes where you do your thanks, Majel. Yeah. Thing is, you have a shot of her, I swear I've never seen before, when she's clearly on the bridge of a ship somewhere in Monster Maroon. I'll be honest, that doesn't look like a wig.
No, that's a good point. And that's from Star Trek 4.
Oh, okay.
She's
also,
at one
like,
of the stations during the storm. Go ahead, Vanessa.
What I find annoying also is that for all her titles and all of her luxury and all of that, her power is so meaningless. Like, it doesn't really mean anything outside of Beta Z. Like, she's an ambassador, but does it really hold sway? What I'm saying is, like, they just made her character a very conveniently toothless aristocrat in order for her to have as little impact on the rest of the Star Trek universe as possible. Like, she has fame and wealth, but not much else. And I just found that also to be annoying.
Except in the second time we see her in season 2, where
For
she
sure.
calls out the fish people, who I can't remember their names, for being bombers.
Antikins, right? No, that's not the
No,
Antikins. Those were the dog
that's
people.
yeah, yep. I was gonna say that's Mark Alamo's first Trek foray.
Yeah, one of the Fleetwoods, the Mick Fleetwood and Fleetwood Mac was one of the fish guys.
Yep.
What? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. I did know that.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And they were like, you're going to be on Star Trek, but you're going to be like heavily makeup and no one's going to recognize you. And he's like, I'm going to be on Star Trek though. And I would have had the same attitude.
Right mindset. Mm-hmm.
So going from her being the most annoying, what do you think is the best Loxana Troy entry or moment? For me, it's right here in Half a Life. Not this specific scene, but
There it is.
basically the whole episode where she's advocating for the elderly and a whole planet that just kills themselves at 60 because that's what they do.
Planned obsolescence, in other words.
Right. And yeah, that is a great episode. I mean, what I was thinking. I know it's not nearly the same, but there's that other episode where she's like gonna marry some guy, and then it's
That's like every episode.
Thank you.
It is.
Is it the Muse on DS9? Is that what you're talking about?
No, it's a TNG episode because she's gonna marry him, but it's not like gonna be a traditional thing, and
Where
then
she
she just
ends
doesn't
up
hold it and
naked
shows up
and-
naked to her wedding.
Yeah, so you're talking about the one with Alexander. The name's also slipping me.
Yeah.
I've got it here. Some cost or no? Yeah, it is. It's cost of living.
Right.
Like, TNG's strength is getting to the core of what a human right is and how that's important above everything else, like the right to exist and the right to engage in cultural practices. So I felt like Loxana in that episode that you're talking about was extremely important for her to have any other substance than, boisterous, loud, obnoxious, whatever.
Right.
I also really like the Muse because of her connection with Odo in that as well. The one that you are pulled up here with her and Alexander just freaks me out.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask. So speaking of cultural practices, is it okay to take a kid that's not your own to a nude mud bath randomly?
I wouldn't do it. I'll say that. Cultural practices I think are different, and a lot of the world doesn't necessarily sexualize nudity in the same way we do. However, I would not do that.
However, how did this get past the censors? We will never know.
Yeah. Like, is that a kid-friendly activity?
I remember seeing this one as a kid and being like, what? She's like naked.
But she's covered in scales, so is she?
Oh.
We don't want to body shame here on Buffer Time.
Not body shaming, but consistency and censoring of the 90s.
Right.
At least as far as that, like, this is, it just, and I don't care, but as far as like 90s television, this is a little risque.
It's a little groomy. It's groomy to me to be like, hey kid, I know your dad's boring. Let's go do something that's definitely not age appropriate. Yeah, a little groomy.
little bit. But getting back, you were talking about the Muse and her getting married to Odo. That was pretty good, I thought. I don't think do I have a picture? I do have a picture.
Indeed. It's been since I've seen that.
For all the marriages she either has or attempts, yeah, this is the best one. And it's her last on-screen performance in Trek.
Did during your research, did you find a sort of like inspiration for her for Luxana? Because that was the character she did the most. So I just wonder, like,
she is the inspiration. Majel Barrett is the inspiration for Luxana. At least that's how Gene put it when he pitched the whole thing. That like, all right, I'm gonna write this, and she's perfect for it. She doesn't have to do anything; she just has to be. So I think Majel is.
I see. They're two peas in a pod, then.
Yeah.
Like presumably, she just had they just gave her a flashier wardrobe, right? Just roll around like that all the time.
She does have one of the best overall wardrobes in Trek, at least until
that is true.
What's her name?
I'll
Nanya,
give it to
or whatever that lawyer
Luxana
chick
that
is
her
this past season.
clothes,
Right.
it's like she had a drag closet or something. It
Right.
was so over the top and big. Like like that's how to make a character impactful. I think shorthandedly, that's a really good method to do it, to make them dress well.
Oh, I don't think
And like very ostentatiously, because like you don't really see people put their wealth on display as much in Trek generally, because that's not really like a value people necessarily have. But her show of finery was a bit of a refreshing take. And I think that's the one where she got kidnapped by a Ferengi, right?
Yes, it is.
Yep.
I was about to bring up the point that this is the only outfit she ever wears twice. She wears it here in TNG, and then a few years later in DS9 when she comes back. And this isn't a great pic of it, but when you see her close up, I didn't know fake flowers could dye, but this dress being put away did not age well, and it had only been away for a couple of years.
I really enjoy her wigs too. Sorry, go ahead, Scott.
Yes.
No, I was just saying it's worth it though. I mean, she stands out on a show where you never know what kind of weird looking alien you're going to see. And even then, it doesn't like, what in the world is that? Like, oh, it's Luxana again. A lovely new dress.
Almost every single time, and she really rocks the dresses.
Yeah, and they were very figure hugging and bodycon, and but at the same time just full of glamour, and I enjoyed that part. Like
I
guessing what she might wear next.
I do love how just generally her character exudes that you are never too old to just be a freak. She rocks.
I would argue that being older makes you a freak, because you just like your self-consciousness goes down and your ability to lean into yourself goes up. So I feel like without the shame attached to aging, this is, at least visually the kind of person that I would expect to see more and more.
Right.
All right, what else do we have to talk about here? Is the recent development of Kirk learning to be a better officer from Una a nod to Majel, as she originated the role?
I hope so, and not just because that was my question.
I don't think it is, but
I feel like she might have taught him a little more than what she was trying to explain in song. But even though it's established that now he's the youngest to make first officer, I'd still say Kirk was probably looking up to the first officer of the flagship and taking some cues there.
I think you're right there.
I saw Una in that episode giving that advice to not only Una, but other folks as well. So I don't know if that specific exchange is necessarily a connection to Majel herself. I just thought like this was an ongoing theme with the way the character was developing, because keeping herself closeted as a not mutant augment
Yep.
was like hiding a part of herself was what kept her distance from people and gave her this sort of cold, steely exterior. And it's like, this doesn't actually help with command. Having that sort of professional cold distance doesn't help with command, because you're like in a confined space. It's not like you punch in, punch out. There's
Right.
got to
Tell
be
that-
more there to the relationship.
Tell that to Picard for the first 3 seasons. But at least we
His
got
ready room is a bit of a sepulcher. That is true.
at least we got some good backstory on him in Picard, though, as to why he's such a stern block of wood for those first 3 seasons. Takes him losing his humanity from the Borg to become more human.
Right.
That's true. But it didn't serve her commanding. So I guess like
Right.
as a,
Okay.
you know, as somebody that's like wanting to teach something, that's the wisdom that she would have to share. But yeah, I see Una's presence on Strange New Worlds itself as an ode to Majel, that she gets
Mhm.
to be the character that Majel did not. And it makes me happy every time that she's on screen, and I wish there was more of her.
Yeah, we really, even though she got an episode this past season revolving
she
around
did.
her character, we didn't get a lot about her in that episode. Just that,
Mhm.
she
Yeah.
feels strongly about, pushing the Federation to not be dicks to others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much it. Could some of Loxana's over-the-top personality have been a reaction to losing one child and being somewhat rejected by her other?
Somewhat.
Yeah, I would say somewhat, because Deanna definitely respects her despite all of her pushiness and flaws. I don't think so. I think she just is. I think all those other things are, well, at least both of those things are pretty much her fault. So, it
Unfortunately.
stems from her, and not, she doesn't become who she is because of it, I don't think.
I mean, there could be a bit of a, defense mechanism there. Is there like an echo?
Yeah, a little bit. I think it's coming from Scott.
Oh. Hold on. Get the volume down a little bit. Is that better? Okay.
Guess we'll find out.
Yeah. So like,
Anyway.
I just thought that there is a bit of a distance that's created when you have a personality that big. It takes up a lot of space emotionally, even physically. And the fact that Seska was a secret for as long as it was, you have to come up with some way to shield yourself, because like in that episode Dark Page, like her psyche was collapsing in on itself because her defense mechanisms weren't working anymore, and
Right.
that her persona is part of that, and like her entire sort of life essence was drained from her. Like they really, like, the only thing that bugs me is like they indicate illness with her in terms of like how it aged her. Like they gave her more gray hair, they made her wrinkles more pronounced and things like that. As the time went on, her clothes became more dowdy in that episode, because it's like her defense of a personality is wearing away, and finally she has to fess up to, oh yeah, there was this kid and they're dead and it was your sibling. BT dubs. Like she was trying so hard to like shield Troy from that, that she damaged herself in the process and came up with this persona. That's what I got from that episode, that her persona is a shield for sure. Like, sure, it's enjoyable, but it's also has a function.
Well, I think it has some function as daughter of the fifth house. She's, she's got to be high class and kind of I guess, a tough bitch for a lack of a better term. I don't know.
I just wonder, like, what's class in a place with no money? What is it? What is lineage anymore?
Well,
Like,
that's
what
a
does that
great
even
question.
It was
mean?
important to her.
Yeah.
I've always wondered that, and yeah, I think you get that sense even through Deanna, like who stands to benefit and become the next daughter of the fifth house, and still like, yeah, the sacred chalice of reeks is just a clay pot with mold in it. Great, I don't care.
Right.
So I think you're right there.
Yeah, I mean, do we see people from like any of the other houses acting like this? To be fair, do we see any other Betazoids acting like Loxana? It's almost like she's got
No.
the overbearing, outgoing personality to make up for the rest of the whole planet.
I would love in Strange New Worlds to meet like the son of the fourth house for no apparently good reason other than to have some contrast.
I didn't necessarily love the framing that her personality was created as a defense mechanism, like as part of her beta Z physiology, that trauma is the only reason that she is the way she is, which that's a bit reductive, because I would like to think that she enjoys having fun because she's a fun person, not just traumatized into it.
Is it a way of shielding herself from other Betazoids, though?
No, it was the Cairn. The Cairn were like, hey, there's something in here that isn't adding up because, oh, it's what you call privacy. But it was this part of her that she didn't want to share with anybody else because it's death, and death sucks to talk about. Yeah.
Right.
Was her eccentric nature and her obvious awareness of how others saw it part of how she was able to love Odo and embrace him as close as she does? We all. I don't think this was.
That was a mouthful. Can you run that again?
Was her eccentric nature and her obvious awareness of how others saw it part of how she was able to love Odo and embrace him as close as she does?
I don't see Luxana Troy as somebody that is especially marginalized. So I don't know if that's really like a through line, but I do think that when she puts her mind to it, even with somebody that physically isn't able to have a brain, that she's able to empathize with people organically. And by that, I mean, not just reading their mind, but wanting to connect with who they are. When she like stops doing the defense mechanism thing, she's actually very capable at making connections. So I think that was more of a testament to that than her personality being like a connection. That's how I interpreted it anyway.
Yeah, I think taking off what you said, I think one of her fascinations with Odo is that not only can she not read him, which, I mean, she can't read certain people, but he doesn't have all the same body language and other markers figured out that everybody else does that she might be able to pick up on. So I think he's an interesting challenge for her.
Yeah.
More than anything. And he fits into the hyper-conservative stereotype of men that she seems to like. She's the most free spirit that likes the most tied down conservative men in the galaxy for some reason.
And he is just crazy closed off, from everybody, which makes sense given just everything that's happened to him.
Yeah, he's the most guarded character.
Yeah.
In that show. So it makes sense that she would like, I can't read you, I can't figure you out. Let's talk and connect that way rather than having to rely on telepathy. That also happened in Manhunt too, because there was a hologram.
Oh boy.
And she's like, I can't read your mind at all. And it's like, I just thought that was so silly because Majel knows what a hologram is. Like,
Right.
why is this so compelling to you?
Why was this episode ever made? This, for me, this is the worst of the Majel episodes because it has nothing else to do with Star Trek. I mean, there's this like background thing going on where Picard's got to say a bunch of nonsense words, but
Yep.
that takes up about 2 minutes of the plot. And the whole rest of it is just her trying to hit on everybody in the goddamn crew, including a hologram. And it
Right.
just,
Like-
I can't with this episode.
Like the phase that they talk about in this, like, does that ever happen to Troy later? You know? Like,
Yeah,
does
they
that-
bring that
They're
up in
still
Picard a
alive,
little
so I'm
bit.
not sure.
even,
Oh, they do. Oh, okay.
don't they? About how they get hypersexual. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
I
Just like
just-
Mr. Holmes standing there, like I've seen this. Don't look. It's gonna happen whether I'm here or not.
The
Mhm.
first 2 seasons of TNG, the first 2 times she appears, like every time Holmes in the background, like he sets the tone for whatever scene he's in. Like this one, just head down right after the whole thing, and she figures out, oh, it was a hologram. like,
And-
there's
He's an alcoholic, fully. He is drinking every scene, every party scene he's in. He is getting crunk. Like,
Mhm.
he is the bottoms up the whole time. And like
Yes.
in Manhunt, he's fully drinking like a whole bottle of booze. Like, wow. This man gets the shakes if he doesn't have his morning Milwaukee's best. This is not a healthy man.
Fun fact: the actor he directed the music video for the '80s song "Mexican Radio," and he's even in it briefly.
Love that song.
Wasn't he
Whoa,
Lurch?
Oh yeah, in the Addams
Yep.
Family movies.
Both of
Yeah.
the lurches from the like older Addams families have been in Trek. That's pretty cool.
You know, Kirsten Dunst was in Dark Page too.
Yep.
That was something to discover today.
Oh, you didn't know that?
No. Yeah, that's not.
Yeah, that's the other.
That's
That's the actual
That's-
Kestra.
yeah.
I don't. Know
Yeah.
that.
She's
I was like,
dead.
oh, this is close enough. This is good enough. Deal with it.
Yeah. That was a really cool thing because it's like, was it before or after Interview with a Vampire? I don't know, but
I think this
Well,
was her
that was
first
cool.
role.
oh, really?
Oh, okay.
I might be wrong, but I think this was her first role. Anywho, do you think Majel would have been a part of Star Trek if she wasn't married to Gene? Would she have auditioned on her own? And did she audition at all? I didn't discover any of this in my research, so. All I know is that she had already had the affair with Gene, but I got the sense that that happened because of the pilot, which was 1964, a couple years ahead of actual Trek.
The way that the past lore of Trek has been written, it's hard to unlink the two in such a way where independent of Jean and all of that she would have done it on her own. I think it's hard to unlink them, but I would like to think that she would. I
Yeah.
would like to think that somebody with those kind of acting chops would take a swing anyway.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
she had to go to the audition for Nurse Chapel, and that was why she changed her name to Barrett and put on a different wig so that hopefully she wouldn't get recognized. And she
Yeah,
didn't.
glad
She
you
got
shared
past Roddenberry, even after they'd
Right?
done the dirty.
I did blind.
He sees blonde hair and his mind is just wiped.
Right.
Like, who are you?
Speaking of different hair, I think the worst hairs
Wow.
Majel ever does are the white hairs. And the first time we ever see Chapel is this stupid white wig. And then she gets married to that She's supposed to get married to that one dude in this. White is not her color.
No.
So, who do you think handled the death of of their child better? Her, Loxana, or Deanna? I think the answer is obviously Deanna, but either Vanessa's frozen or she just can't even.
No, I think she's pretty frozen.
Uh-oh.
Oh dear. That's
Oh, no.
very frozen. Oh no, drop this on me. Yeah, I mean, it's been a little I'm a little rusty on this one. It's probably why I'm leaning toward a TNG rewatch, but yeah, I'm pretty sure Deanna handled things a lot better. Because we were
fell off a
talking
cliff.
about how she suddenly found herself pregnant and then had a son, and he like grew up.
And he
super
does,
fast.
yeah. He appears in the Betaverse as well.
Oh, yeah?
He's in a novel. Majel, not
Mhm.
Majel, Loxana's son.
Loxana's son.
Mm-hmm. The one
Oh,
from
you said
the Muse.
Oh,
The Muse. Oh, right. Right, I forgot there was a kid involved there,
yep.
which never gets brought up again. That's a good point. If
Troy's
Majel
hair
were...
looks amazing. Sorry.
Oh no, I agree. That might be
Yeah,
Troy's
God,
best
yeah.
hair, because overall
Mhm.
Troy's hair not very good, but
Yeah.
way better than Bev's hair. One of these days we might just have to do an episode on hair. And
Season 7, Beverly, good Brazilian blowout in you know, that the one where she's with a ghost. That one.
Mm-hmm.
That was good. But
Every-
otherwise,
every-
yes, I agree.
I think we could compare every single episode that she's in with hair to a different dog, because it's like her hair is, and I don't mean that. Well, I kind of mean it badly, but literally her hairstyle in a lot of episodes, I can compare. I can put a different dog next to it, and it would look like the hair of that dog. I wish I had a picture from probably the worst hair dressing ever in Star Trek is in a Majel episode, the first first Loxana episode, during the wedding pre-dinner thing, and Bev and Yar. Oh my God, worst hair ever. I wish I had the picture, but anyway, that's
Season
tangent.
1 was just rough with everybody's hair, I think.
Pretty much.
You ain't hardly kidding.
Hmm.
So if Majel were with us today, what role do you think she would be best in modern Trek?
I mean, she could go against type and I don't know, maybe be an admiral. Not saying she has to play anybody that we know now.
Mhm. Right. Yeah, that would probably be a good one. Yeah, like if she had been like the head of that tribunal that was taking on Una earlier in the season.
Yep.
Right.
That probably would have worked really
Oh
well.
yeah, that would have been great.
Or just like a random captain of a ship somewhere.
Yeah.
Chew up
Like
the
an
idea.
engineer, like a Hemmer type of person.
Oh, that too. Oh God, she could be our season 3 guest star. I wonder
Yes.
if we're
Oh,
gonna.
right?
I mean, not to get off course too much, but I wonder if Pelly is going to continue with us in Strange New Worlds, or if it's going to be a new thing every season. That's what I got out of it. And I know we're not really like talking about Strange New Worlds right now, but
That's okay.
did not Hemmer, but the God, what's his name? I can't remember that plays Hemmer. Bruce Horrick. Did Bruce Horrick get more screen time than Carol Kane this season? Because it must have come close. It must come real close.
Pretty close, yeah.
It just
Yeah.
one of those weird things I noticed. Like, wow, she really didn't get a lot of screen time. Anyway, how would you write a once-a-season character for Majel during the TNG era, besides Loxana? If she was going to be a recurring character that wasn't Loxana, what should she have been?
Like, not Troy's mom, not harassing everybody.
Right.
I would have really enjoyed seeing her as an enemy, honestly. Like, I would have really enjoyed, like, not as necessarily like faceless and imposing as the Borg, but an
like
antagonistic presence for sure.
Like Denise Crosby as Scylla or something. Come back and just be
Exactly.
like a recurring enemy.
Exactly. Yes.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Not bad, yeah.
I never did see Earth 2 or Andromeda, and the way she produced those, which were Gene's, pilots. It's interesting. Gene got more pilots off the ground after he died because of her than he really did in life. The dude had so many failed pilots, and I think at some point we're going to have to do a show on that. But I know she did some acting in that too, and I would have liked to have seen what she did, because other than Star Trek, she did some stuff before Trek. And then she did some stuff after Gene died, but she really didn't do anything but Trek in between. So she doesn't have a lot of acting roles to compare it to.
Or like a sort of the antagonist in DS9 kind of character, where it's like a religious figure or somebody of report.
Oh God, she could have been Kai Wynn. She totally could have been Kai Wynn.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And I actually think Loxana would have been the one person to take down Kai Wynn. Think about it. Like,
oh God, yeah. I was just gonna say it'd be great to have a Loxana versus Kai Wynn episode, because that'd just be batshit awesome.
Yeah, because Kai Wynn was all about like pretense and appearances and like giving an impression of like good intent, and Loxana would be like, you're horrible. You're actually literally horrible. Right. And the fact that you're pretending not to be is really ridiculous. Like, just seeing Kai Wynn short circuit would have been so worth it.
So that kind of brings me to an idea that we were talking about before this. When Strange New Worlds was announced, I had really hoped that we would either get the same person cast as both Una and Nurse Chapel, or we get twins to play them, as like an homage to Majel. It's too bad we didn't get that. But at the same time, I love Rebecca Romaine, and I do like Jess Bush. So that leads us to a question that Vanessa came up with before the stream. Is there a Chapel preference, Majel or Jess Bush? I know that first reaction, you want to say Majel, but for me, I think I gotta say Jess Bush.
And I would agree.
Yeah. The thing is, like, her character. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm not the first person to say it's. People have said that they made the bold move of recreating Nurse Chapel and giving her a personality this time. And that can be chalked up to just, bad writing on TOS, but.
Yeah. And we didn't see we didn't see Chapel all that much.
Very true.
There's a few in my Thanks Majels. I even do them for scenes where she doesn't have a line, and there are a lot where she is as Nurse Chapel, where she's in the scene, but she doesn't get anything to say.
She was one half of the first interracial kiss as Nurse Chapel on Star Trek, because Uhura plants a smooch on her. So that
I didn't think about that. That's
Yeah, it's like
okay.
I feel like it's kind of hard to compare because Bush's iteration of Chapel is given so much more character, so
Oh
much
yeah.
more to do comparatively. So it's really
Yes.
hard to say that like Majel's acting is worse. It's just that the character
Yeah.
is just so much more. Like a former
Mhm.
war thing with like a
Right.
flashback that wouldn't have happened. That didn't happen
Right.
in the 60s. So
Yeah, almost everything I have a problem with in Trek is never the actor. It's 99% of the time the writing. There's
That's
only a
fair.
few actors I've been like, yeah, you've been way miscast. Looking at you, Benedict Cumberbatch, and at least you recognize that. So
No, brother.
self-awareness is the first step to recovery.
apparently he also can't say the word penguin. That is a challenge for him.
All right,
Okay.
that's
He,
random.
he had to do a voiceover in a nature documentary, and he's like penguin,
Penguin.
penguin,
A
like he
penguin.
couldn't do it.
Penguin. Did not know that.
So I think the last question we had here was, what was your first impression of Majel's different characters? Since I'm the only one in the group that's been watching TNG since its first run, I remember thinking, "Oh my God, made Loxana Troy, just avoid all the Loxana episodes." Now, as an adult, I have an appreciation for a couple of them, but it's still pretty bad. That's both my first and mostly still current impression. As far as North Chapel, yeah, just she's a background character that recurs. That's about all I can say. She's developed just slightly more than Lieutenant Colored Sugar Cubes, as I call him. I can't remember his actual name. The one who dies drinking milk.
Right.
And as number one, like we've talked about earlier here. I think that's her best role, and it's really too bad she didn't get to stay in it. Because otherwise, I hate the cage. Also, I don't hate it, but it's better than Encounter at Farpoint, but worse than pretty much every other pilot. And she's great as the computer. She is the computer. I mean, when you hear any computer voice, don't you just want it to be in the voice of Majel?
Yes. Especially in like that last episode of Picard. They're like, oh wait, how can they do the computer voice? And they did.
Before I toss that question to you guys, in my research, one of the interesting things I found is that she's also the voice of for a couple of railroads for their emergency system. So if there's a problem, the voice will come on and tell them the brakes need maintenance or whatever, and it's in Majel's voice. And apparently it's been phased out of most places except half of them are still here in Maine, and most of them are in New England. So that's interesting. There are still trains with Majel's voice, and it's basically a computer. That's pretty cool.
Come for the lobster, stay for the Majel.
Yeah.
That should be our new motto. I don't know if this is the way life should be anymore. But what were your thoughts on Majel's characters when you first saw them?
I thought that Lixana, it looks like something that Majel would have fun doing at the very least. Like it looks like a fun character to play. To be the X factor in the room is always the most fun option. But I felt like this is going to be a comedic beat that gets old. Like you can't keep making this joke and expecting it to be funny in the same way every single time.
Right.
So I felt like immediately I thought this is going to paint Majel in a very tight corner emotionally with this character, that it's going to run out of runway after a while. My first impression of the computer is, I guess, that I just thought by default that, oh, more echo. Sorry. I just thought that this was just the ship's voice in every iteration. I mean, it goes all the way to 2009's Trek movie. They even used her in that. So I just thought, like, this is what a starship sounds like and should sound like. And with Chapel, I thought, like, there's a beat in what are and the children shall lead. It's not a very good episode, but there is a part
No,
where
Magel's high
Chapel is
point.
like, yeah, it's bad.
But yeah,
But
Magel's the high point. She gives them friggin'
yeah,
ice
she
cream.
is. She gave ice cream to the little kids, and it was a nice moment. I actually saw a sparkle in her eye when she got to do that, because like all the kids often on TOS are just like actors' kids or whatever. So it kind of felt like this interesting daycare type of feel. So I thought, like, oh, this is a very kind character. This is a very loving character. And also, like, my first impression of her actually came from the episode where her and Spock are sort of like feeling things for each other. And, you know, to know that arc ends in Plato's Stepchildren the way it does retroactively, it's like, a harbinger of doom. But within the context of Strange New Worlds now, it's interesting. It's interesting that they have that background. But I just thought this person was meant to be like the doe-eyed, loving, maternal figure. And again, that's a very one-note thing. With Una, I was like really ready for more episodes with her in it, and it didn't happen. So, you know, she could be in as much bad or good episodes as any of the guy captains. You know, it's like, I don't really see that necessarily being like the reason or a reason to discount her as a character. I thought, like, this is somebody who's very practical and gets things done. And yeah, I enjoyed her. I really wanted more of her. And it's sad that we didn't get that.
Indeed.
Yeah, I agree. You know, as Una, she's, you know, first officer. She's competent. She can take charge, and it's pretty disappointing that she didn't get to continue with that character. Then we move on to Nurse Chapel, and it's kind of a total opposite. If it wasn't for a few brief moments where she has something to do, she could almost be considered set dressing. But, you know, she has those brief moments and she makes them work. So it's just more of a testament to her acting ability. And then, of course, you got Loaxana, who I think I was watching for the first time in all those episodes as a kid, wondering, why are you even here? Why are you getting in the way of this important space stuff? And I wouldn't be surprised if I wasn't the only one who was thinking that, which is why they're like, oh, well, we need to get they were like, you know, we need to get Loaxana more involved now and give, you know, a few more dimensions to her character. And it didn't always work, but sometimes it didn't. And yeah, she was probably having a lot of fun playing the character. And like I said, you know, the computers, just the computers, kind of the glue of the 90s to early 2000s series. Kind of iconic.
Like, I'm not an AI advocate. It's not something that I am pro that for a multitude of reasons. However, in the case of Majel's voice as the ship, that is the one exception I'll make, because I feel like it's a necessary piece of what makes Star Trek Star Trek, honestly. And not hearing her voice anymore is hard.
I agree, and she even recorded her voice for that purpose, and I wonder why we haven't heard it. I wonder if it's just because she waited till right at the end of her life, if it just wasn't great quality, or, you know, didn't really sound like the computer as much anymore by then. But I am surprised that we haven't seen anything of that. And yeah, I agree. I think as a whole, AI, it's more of a gimmick than anything we're seriously going to see in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I also think it's tacky if it's a thing that we start seeing a lot of from like dead characters. But I also think it's if a character specifically or an actor specifically goes and signs the contract and does the acting and does the like the scans or the audio to be made into something like the computer here. I think that's great. I think that's a great use of it.
Right. As long as there's some
Yeah.
compensation going in the direction of
Sure.
their relatives and stuff, like, and they consent
Yep.
to it as well. Like,
Right.
I would be pro that. In this specific case, I feel like there's too much room for abuse in other areas. But if like everybody goes in with eyes wide open, consenting to it, then, I just miss her voice as the ship really. And,
Yeah, I mean,
part of legacy is knowing what you've lost with that
Yep.
person not around anymore. So
it's all in how you use the tech. So that's all of our regular questions. Did you guys have anything else regarding Miss Majel that you'd like to talk about?
what kind of outfit do you see you putting together, Dustin, for Miss Luxana Troy? Like if you were going to dress her.
Yeah.
What's her best thing?
No, I'm
actually,
asking
I
like
think
if you were going to put an outfit together, an ensemble,
and put it on Majel.
You're the costume designer now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Like,
think
what's
they
the vid-
really did a good job of that. I mean, I did an episode already about the 5 best and 5 worst things that Majel has worn.
That's true.
Or at least Luxana Troy has worn. And I think it would come something really close to what she wears in this one, even though I think the episode is garbage. This thing, it's both colorful and flattering to her. It really works for her figure. So something with a cutout, something with some amount of color, but not too much. Yeah, I wish I had the full length picture of this one, but yeah, something like that, and not like this freaking 90s thing. This bothers me. I don't think this is her worst, but it's weird.
It just doesn't look flattering on her.
No, it doesn't. There's a few things that really
like-
don't.
It's like she's wearing a drape with a bedsheet wrap.
I'm not. I think
Right,
this
it's
is
toga
the only
party.
other thing
Give me-
that's. But I'm only gonna say it's worse because the color, the orange, really does not work for her. The dress itself, it's
That's fair.
simple. It works. It's okay. And actually,
it doesn't give
now-
me Luxana.
now that I think about it, though, I think this is perfect for this particular episode where she's then gonna have a scene where she literally lets her hair down. So she's just her. She's not the
Right.
fancy, over-the-top aristocrat. So that's pretty cool. But the color's hideous. Yeah, I gotta get going more on my sewing channel. It's been a long month. I never even finished the Barbie dresses I'm working on.
I like that thing, even though again, horrible episode, but the one where she's kidnapped, where she's wearing like these aggressive ruffles around like the sleeves and stuff. That to me is like full on, like that is when after she's captured.
Yeah.
And they have to like style bed sheets to like cover themselves, but like right
You
before
talking
she's
about this
kidnapped,
one? Yep.
right there.
Yeah.
That to me is Luxana. Like everything's just like, it's not just, but like I'm not. Yeah, there's bosom, there's
There's
you know,
beads.
epaulettes, there's
Yep.
finery. Just it's almost like a mind-bending amount of detail in those sleeves. Like
I'm not the
yeah,
biggest fan of fake flowers, but the overall
Mhm.
style of
Yeah.
of the piece
Yeah.
together works.
Mhm.
Right.
And it's so funny. This was just like a picnic. Just,
This is what
they're
she-
just outside
she
not
wears
eating
what-
food. ribbons
fancy.
and just like the maximalist approach she has to her clothes is really funny to me. It kind of adds to the comedy of her character.
I got thinking while getting all these pictures that even though she blows the Ferengi off in this one, the Ferengi and the Beta Zeds have the same wedding traditions. You're naked at your wedding. That could work.
Is the man naked in a Ferengi wedding?
Probably not, but
Yeah.
The nudity serves a different purpose in Ferengi society, for sure. Like, it's meant to make it so that women remain illiterate and unable to leave the house. So, like, nudity in Beta Z that's just a wedding thing, and everybody does it. Everybody does it. Like, I've been reading the Imzadi novel, and they have a wedding scene in there, and Riker is not told until he shows up that they have to be naked. And I've found that to be like Troy that was the first time he met Troy in the book.
Mhm.
But like, everybody being naked, that's just what they do. It's a cultural practice.
Yeah.
Not just like a thing to make clear that this person isn't a second-class citizen. So
Yeah.
I go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, I was found the one time they try to talk about that in DS9, they say that it's because it sexualizes the woman more to think about them taking the clothes off. Is it was the gist of what was said once. So I've never quite wrapped my head around that, but
yeah,
all right. I guess you can find a justification for anything.
Yeah, right.
Right. I also found it interesting, the relationship, for a character that was the character that she played the most, that Majel played the most, which was Lwaxana, had a very horrible relationship with Troy. And I don't know that it's really Troy's fault to not want to be around somebody who's demanding that she live a certain way. Like, I wonder, like, in the hands of other people, how might that relationship have been written? Because it again, very one note.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is very overbearing, and like, I mean, her whole thing, Lwaxana's whole thing is like, I need to be married all the time, and if I'm not getting married, I need to work on getting married. So you need to work on getting married.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's just
And it's like,
she is just a one note.
Might there be mothers who have that focus? Sure, but that's not all they talk about. They have other concerns that are worth bringing up with their family besides matrimony. I mean, the very first episode that Lwaxana shows up on was
Troy gets married.
the one where Lwaxana is or Troy is engaged, is like arranged to marry somebody.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's the matrimony is the only reason that these two people connect ever. Like, Haven, that's the one. Yeah. But such a weird plot though. He, like, the guy, the man in the marriage just kept drawing the same person over and over again. It looked nothing like Troy, but he like met Troy and he goes, well, I guess this will work out. Like, we'll just put these drawings away and I will live a lie being in love with you.
Right.
Well, for as bad as that episode is, one of the best parts is Majel talking him down off the ledge and being like, look, it's okay if you don't marry my daughter. Just, you do you. If you need to do this, go figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That episode was a train wreck, but she was the most she was the voice of reason,
Yeah,
and
she
she
can.
and the episode are still terrible.
Oh, she was the voice on the
Like,
train.
written well, Luxana can be the heart of an episode.
Speaking of which,
But
though, one of my favorite things is when Loxana talks to the computer. She always knocks on the wall when she's talking to herself. Sorry to interrupt you, Vanessa, but that was
no,
just the thing
I
I
love
wanted to
that
say.
too.
I love it.
They're I mean, quite literally, they're talking to themselves in that moment, and it just tickles me whenever it happens.
All right. Well, unless you guys have something else you want to just talk Majel here, I think we're going to wrap it up.
Okay.
I'm not sure when we're coming back or who we will all be together with. We've talked about some things like comparing TOS's pilots to each other, or just maybe pilots in general of Gene Roddenberry. I thought we had one more idea. I don't remember what it was. Either way, we will be back here at some point, sometime. Stick with us. I'd like to thank everybody who has joined us, and I'd like to thank Scott and Vanessa for coming and talking Majel, the mother of Trek, with us here for an hour. And we'll see you again soon. Until then, live long and prosper.